there, it's Effie Wild. I am still plodding along with my 100-day project. Very determined to finish it this time. Round three. Three is a charm. I'm working in a journal this time, and I'm going to explain why in a second as soon as I put my phone on silent mode. I am working on a project over on Patreon called A Book of Mirrors. Now, this project has been ongoing for quite some time. I did it a couple of years ago for 12 months and then re-upped it for 2024. But I'm pivoting. I'm actually taking the program back to its original intention, which was to fill a journal with spreads that mark my sort of personal journey, development, fill it with aspirational spreads and inspirational spreads, things that inspire me, poems, song lyrics, memes, etc. And it just felt like with the new sobriety, it felt like just time for something new. Time to pivot a little bit, time to focus on something new. So I started the book with a book blessing. You can see that on screen now for my folks over on Patreon. And this will be popping up elsewhere as well. I'd just like my patrons to get these first. But this will be popping up as a full-length class elsewhere. So this spread for day 83 was just a experiment to see how this handmade cotton paper stands up to my usual process, which, as you know, if you've been watching, involves a lot of wet into wet and like watercolor and layers and stuff like that. So this is an experiment. I wasn't focused so much on the outcome as much as I was on just like throwing everything at the thing that I would normally throw at the thing. So starting with something from nature is typical for me. I love leaves. I love working with foliage and nature-inspired motifs, so that's what I did. The paints I'm using are from Prima Marketing. This, I can't remember exactly which palette this is. I have like 8 of their palettes. They're all wonderful. I love them all. I'm not sure about their longevity in terms of fading and stuff like that. I'm not concerned about it because most of what I do with these either gets sealed with UV varnish or they happen in a journal, so I'm not too worried about all of that stuff. But I wanted to work with dropping wet into wet, so I did that in this sort of leafy configuration. I'm doing a lot more paintings that are just for pleasure's sake, like there's no healing modality except for the healing modality that is inherent in having a creative practice. I'm thinking more sort of whimsically and what delights me and what colors are calling my name than I am about like digging in my dirt or stirring from the bottom of the cauldron. And like, it's not like I'm never going to do that again. In fact, I'm sure I'll do that tomorrow. It's just that sometimes coming to the page the way that I have been since I quit drinking is about just self-soothing. It's just about meeting myself where I am and doing something pleasurable, something that will replace the swilling of the boxed Chardonnay. So I'm doing a lot more of that lately, and I'm definitely doing that in this spread. So this is coming to you on day 18 of my sober journey, and painting every day has been just a huge part of that journey for me. Like, you guys know, if you know me at all, if you've known me for any length of time, that painting saves my bacon every day. Like, it's what I do. I started as a writer, and my writing practice was definitely a part of my healing journey, but now painting has kind of overtaken that over the last 12 years or so as what I do to self-soothe, to be with myself, to make and keep promises to myself. And I really do consider this medicinal and also magical. It's really quite amazing what painting has brought into my life. I feel like it's important to talk about being in early recovery, early sobriety. I think that a lot can be healed when we tell our stories in safe places. And you know, you guys know this about me. I'm just, if I'm doing something, I'm telling you about it. That's just the way it is. I just find it so much a part of how I move in the world to be honest about what's going on with me. And so it's come up, you know, it's coming up in my writing over on Substack, it's coming up in my 100-day project, and it's not something I'm ashamed of. Things have changed in the recovery community since I first gave it a go many, many years ago. You know, really the only option that was available to me at that time was a sort of a, not to diss, you know, another program, but there was a lot going on in, quote, the rooms, if you were a friend of Bill, if you get my meaning, that didn't quite work for me as a feminist, as a witch, as someone who did not want to feel ashamed or broken or frankly powerless. So I'm not saying that the lack of resources was why I kept drinking. I mean, I really didn't need an excuse to keep drinking. But I am saying that finding programs that don't include those problematic things is something I'm very grateful for. It's kind of miraculous how it happened too. I was talking to Renee about being really sick and tired of feeling sick and tired and waking up feeling unwell and noticing some symptoms in my body that I was sure had to do with an extended period of heavy drinking. And I mean, I had a million reasons why it was not a big deal. You know, I mentioned this, I think, in the last video that I did, that my drinking wasn't like, first of all, I did it alone a lot. So it's not like I was like picking fights with people or blackout drunk or like embarrassing myself in public or anything like that. I kind of wish I had experienced that, because I feel like I would have quit a lot sooner. But it was all about coming to a point where, sure, I wasn't hurting anybody else, but I was damn sure hurting myself, and I could really like not deny that any longer. So I was sharing that with Renee because, you know, she is the person I share everything with. And she made a recommendation. She knew someone that was involved with something called the Luckiest Club. She was like, oh, have you seen this? And I popped over to look, and it just so happened that they had a program called the Sober 90 starting in a couple of weeks from that conversation. And at first I was like, a million excuses, why not, right? I can't afford it. I don't have time. This isn't for me right now. All the reasons why not. But after about a week of waking up feeling really just awful and realizing that my feet were getting more and more numb and I was just miserable, just absolutely miserable, I looked at my budget and I worked out how much I would save if I quit drinking, and I decided that I could afford the program if I quit drinking. So I signed up and started on July 1st. And it's been quite a journey so far. I've got to admit that I am finding the not drinking part really, really, really easy. There are things coming into my consciousness over the course of this experience that are really kind of mind-blowing and mind-shifting. Like, alcohol was my weapon of choice against myself. Like, it was my number one self-harm practice, and a lot of it has roots in my trauma in my childhood. You know, I grew up being told by my bio maternal unit, I wouldn't um, honor her with the label mother, that I would grow up to be just like my father. Like, I heard that all the time. My father, who was a violent alcoholic, my father who taught me the meaning of hot by putting a cigarette out in the palm of my hand. My father, who, when I was sent to live with him when I was in my teens, beat the living shit out of me in blackout, drunken fits of rage, and then would wake up the next morning with absolutely no memory of what happened. I rebelled against that messaging unconsciously. Obviously, this was not known to me. It's not like I knew that I was doing this, but I started drinking in my adulthood once my kids were grown. I had a brief dalliance with alcohol when my kids were little, but I quit. I did not get to the point where it was like a huge deal. I was like, oh, nope, can't function as a parent to small children if I'm doing this, so I stopped. But when my kids were older, when they were all either adults or late teens, Wine's Day became a thing. Weekend cases of beer with my partner became a thing. And when my marriage ended in 2014, it escalated from there. Fireball became a thing. Boxes of wine on the counter became a thing. And it was my way for a long time of saying, see, I can drink and I'm nothing like him. Insidious, cunning, and baffling. It took me a long time to become a problematic drinker. I was very much in control of moderating until 2020 when the pandemic hit. The pandemic really is, I mean, that's not the beginning of my origin story. My origin story is 55 years old. But it really ramped up in 2020. And then I was hit with trauma after trauma after trauma. And despite having an excellent therapist and despite doing excellent work in the realm of recovery from CPTSD, I still used drinking as a buffer between myself and what was actually going on within me and around me. And it got bad, guys. It got really bad. It got to the point where I was so vitamin B12 deficient that I did not experience hunger. And I was so malnourished that I probably have brain damage. I'm going to the doctors on August 9th to start the process of mitigating that in whatever way I can. It may require B12 shots. I'm going to get my liver function tested. So all that harm, right? All that harm to my poor body, which most certainly did not deserve this treatment. But I am not shaming myself over this, and I will not allow myself to be shamed by it either. Shame is where I grew up. Shame is what I was raised in. I don't remember a time in my childhood when I wasn't in trouble. And look, children need to be corrected. Absolutely. We need to train our children up in being decent, functional human beings, but that's not what I experienced at all. And I won't, no need for a trigger warning. I'm not going to go into details here with the horrors, but I refuse to do to myself any longer what was done to me. And so sobriety is my new hyperfixation, and I'm really happy about it. Like, really happy about it. I'm really finding it easier to be with myself now that I've stopped hurting myself. So that's me. Day 83 of the 100-Day Project and day 18 of going alcohol free. I have great fun plans today. I'm going to, hopefully, my favorite restaurant if Kimmy and I can get reservations. I drank a lot there. It's going to be interesting to go in and order a Perrier with lime instead of the liter of Shiraz that I would normally barrel through during dinner. But I know I'm capable of it, and I know that, Kimmy is very supportive of my sobriety. So it's not going to be a problem. And now that I can experience hunger again, I'm really interested to see how the best Greek food in southwestern Ontario tastes on my new sober taste buds. So let's time-lapse the rest of this. It's just a watercolor painting that I'm going to throw a bunch of mixed media at. I will show you the final results at the end, and I'll see you all in all of our places. And again,